Now, I've got a lot of you guys who, frankly, Austin's a pretty heavy relocation city. There's a lot of people moving in, a lot of people moving out, and we talk a lot about, is it worth renting my home in Austin or any of the suburbs around the area? Because I own my home now, probably you've got a very low interest rate on it if you've had it for a couple of years, and is it a better idea to turn it into a rental versus selling the house and taking that equity? Now, a lot of that comes down to a math problem, which is a very personal decision, but I want to shed some light on some statistics. I want to show you some good arguments for turning your home into a rental, as well as at the end, talk about some of the reasons why you might not want to, that TikTok will not tell you. So let's jump straight into this. I got a lot of cool things to talk about. Now, what's going on, y'all? My name is Mason Bleasdell, your Austin real estate agent. And, in these videos, like these started as folks would call me up, especially relocation buyers, and ask me, what's going on? And I'd show them around the neighborhood and I'd talk about a lot of these stats. But so many of you guys find it so helpful. I started making videos, making them general, to show you guys kind of my thought process when I'm working with my clients. And I've got a lot of investor clients, and I've got folks who have turned their current home into a rental home before, just like the thought process and the logic of how I approach that, started to help them. And I certainly hope that this is helpful for you. So turning your current home into a rental in Austin really comes down to a math problem. And I can help you specifically because every neighborhood's a little bit different. But is that monthly mortgage payment versus what the house could actually rent for, like find a tenant, does that math make sense? Now, I do have a lot of investors, I was showing with some earlier this week, who are very happy to take a loss every month. So, in most of the cases that we're seeing now, if you're putting 30% down on a mortgage at the current investor interest rates, most of these homes, if we do it strategically, are losing $300-400 a month. So, I'm making up the numbers here, but let's say that mortgage comes out to $3,000. You could realistically rent that house for $2,700. Those are the kind of numbers we're seeing. Now, that does not include hiring a property manager, or any of the other things like lawn maintenance or something that a landlord may do for a tenant. But just as napkin numbers, generally speaking, that's what we're seeing here. However, if you adjust that interest rate down to 3%, that math completely flips on its head. And so a lot of you guys, my folks who are sitting on those super low mortgages, are really starting to think about it. Let's say that is you. Let's say the math does make sense. The rental market versus the sale market is dramatically different. And I want to show you some numbers as to why I think that is pretty advantageous for people turning their homes into rents. And I also want to talk about some numbers that talk about appreciation of Austin, because again, cash flow here really doesn't happen too much, and it's because of our higher property taxes. Now, that's offset by not having state income tax, but let's jump straight into it because some of these numbers are really, really fascinating. Now, Austin, this is pulling every month for the last 10 years. You can see here the historical price trend. Austin rent prices have pretty consistently, on average, gone up over those last 10 years. You can see during some of those COVID years, 2021, they went up fairly dramatically, but they really haven't come down much, which I think is the most interesting part of this. Whereas if you look at the sales prices, everybody knows, Austin went up 40% or so in some areas in 1 year, and it's come down about 20 from that peak. Some areas even a bit worse than that. Rent numbers, however, hardly have been affected. It's super fascinating to check these numbers out. So what can that tell you? There's a lot of stability on pricing in the market. Now, everybody is talking about all of the building of apartment style complexes around the Austin area and how there's, a lot of vacancies and a little bit higher. These statistics are only pulled for single family home residences. And obviously the typical person that's going to be renting a single family home versus an apartment typically fits a different demographic. So definitely do some research on those things. And of course, location always matters. However, you can see here that, again, looking at single family homes, it's really, really stable. I don't think there's too much to worry about in the future as far as pricing goes, which I do think is a good thing. Now, one of the other stats I think is really interesting is the average days on market for a rental. Again, pulling every single month for the last 10 years, look at how stable these numbers have been. Now, I'm going to put up on the screen here sales numbers. In the Austin market, average days on market right now, we actually just shot our update video, is 75 days. Now we're in a post-COVID world with interest rates at 6.5% or so. But if you look back, example, 2014, midsummer, 45 days, 46 days, 40 days. It fluctuates up and down a little bit from there, and it hit as low as 12 days on market back in COVID in the middle of the summer. That fluctuates far more than the rental. If I put those rental numbers, average days on market, back on the screen, look at how little in reality it changed. Now, it did revert back. COVID times were a little bit crazy. It hit down to 11. However, now, post-COVID, in the same way that we've got numbers that have gone quite a bit higher in the sales, they really haven't gone much beyond what was normal right before then. It's not dramatically different, and it's a whole heck of a lot stronger than the sales numbers. What does all of this mean for you, though? This means realistically, I bet you have a good chance, assuming the house is nice, a good chance of renting it out really quickly. Things you can do to make your house stand out, of course, professional pictures. No one wants to see those cell phone photos. We've all seen them. Cell phone photos of the flooring, for example. Make your house seem bright, make it seem presentable, all the same things that I do as a marketing expert when you hire me to sell your house. Now, lastly, real talk. Let's talk about some of the cons, some of the things that people don't think about. I have a client who lost their air conditioner last year in the middle of summer. Not too bad. I was actually able to help make some introductions. We got them an AC system right away. That was a $9,000 air conditioner. And if you took, after the mortgage was paid, the little profit upon their mortgage, it wiped out a year and a half worth of profit to replace the air conditioner. Home warranties could come into effect there, but then you've got to factor in $600 a year or so into your math equation to make that work. Also, don't forget, if you're going to hire a property manager, most of the property managers that I have dealt with in the past charge about 7% of each month's rent to manage the property. Now, they're going to do everything for you. And if there is a repair, they handle it. You're usually going to give them a budget. If it exceeds a certain budget, then they call you. But typically $1,000, $1,500, they just take care of it. You never know about a thing, which is awesome, especially if you don't live here or you work full-time jobs and those kind of things. You're not a full-time landlord. Don't let anyone tell you that even hiring a property manager, that it's passive income. It does actually take work to manage a rental. Those property management companies are also usually going to charge 70% of 1 month's rent to list the house. That's going to include taking pictures, getting it listed, doing tours, and actually drawing up the lease. All of these things also should be factored in, so don't forget about those. And if you wanted to manage yourself, you absolutely can. Just know you're getting yourself into a little bit of work. Make sure you're caught up on Texas tenant code. I cannot tell you how many times I've dealt with folks who are buying a house that was previously a rental, or they're looking to turn it into. Don't forget, you've got to put a deadbolt in each exterior door. That includes the door into the garage that is not accessible by a key. There has to be peepholes in every door. Like, a lot of these little nuances are really important to keep up on, so make sure you read up on those things if you're going to turn your house into one, because what you don't want to do is mess that up. Also, crazy story that's way more than is appropriate for this, but make sure you know the difference between squatters and trespassers. That can come in really handy. For example, someone moves in who hasn't paid their rent, but they still have a lease. That's a contentious thing that you got to go through the court system for, versus someone who does not have a lease who lives in the house. They're trespassing. A whole lot of legalisms that go around it. And of course too, then there's the argument of, well, at the interest rates that we have at the time you've owned the house, there could be a good chunk of equity. Would it make more sense to move that over because of today's high interest rates into your new house? Very possibly. So if you're curious about what any of this means, if you're curious about turning your own house into a rental, I do not do property management, but I've got some good referrals for you if you want to talk about it. And I'd be happy to be a consult along the way. Or if you're thinking of, hey, what could I sell my house for? What could I rent my house for? And maybe let's do that math and see what might be the most advantageous for you. Reach out. I love doing this stuff. I'd love to reach out to you personally and kind of go over a game plan. Let's see what kind of makes the most sense and what you're most up for. I did make a whole video about some of the clever ways, house hacking, renting out individual bedrooms in a house, some of the ways you can really maximize the investment. Definitely check out that video too. But if this was helpful to you and you are looking for an agent to help you through this process, whether you're looking to buy an investment, whether you're looking to maybe sell your current home or rent it, I'd love to be that resource for you. Thank you so much for watching. I'll talk to y'all next time.